Dobro jutro svima.
Dobro jutro svima. Ovdje Ivana i
Ovdje je Maki.
yay, we have so many new things to talk about.
Yes, definitely.
Exactly.
Okay. So we are going back to the origin of Serbian language today.
Exactly. But before we talk about this, if you're listening to us from the podcast, you may not know, but now we have a video available for any of you that really want to see our pretty faces. We're going to be on morning faces. We're going to be on YouTube, and we're going to have like a video recording as well of us. We thought it's not as complicated, so why not provide it even like that kind of medium? So if you like seeing and listening, then there we're going to be over there. But yeah,
we are excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the Balkan Peninsula first.
Oh yeah, today we're going to talk about kind of like a slight introduction into the history of the Serbian language, but also why is it that, what's the deal with like the Balkan Peninsula and all of these languages? Are they the same language? Are they different languages? It's such a heated debate, I feel like, with everyone, and we're not gonna kind of force you to choose sides. We're just gonna give you an explanation of how it used to develop, and also why is it, regardless of the language dialect, why is it useful now? Is it useful to know Serbian in Croatia, in other?
I mean,
yeah,
living in the Balkans for 5 years now, actually.
Yeah,
I will definitely say that it's useful, and I wish I had started learning Serbian and when I first came here.
Yeah.
So, but I'm still learning. I'm now learning, and I'm going to learn it. And in 5 years, I will be able to communicate in the Balkans more comfortably.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think she's totally right. I think it's if you call it different languages or whatever, they're mutually intelligible. So let's see how and what are the differences. Okay, so this is I kind of already gave an introduction, so I want to kind of give you a bit of the history. This is not going to be a session about history. It's not going to be that boring, but you can always read up on it. So this is something that, that's if you want to learn a bit more. And also I think we should read a bit more on it because because it is complicated. Things are not as straightforward,
and reading only one time does not help me. So I need to reread it again, because all the things are new and you cannot just remember all the names, all the dates and everything. So I need to do it again.
And you know what, this topic we haven't really like talked about it that much in school. The only reason why I kind of know something about it is because one of my friends studied Serbian. So then she introduced me into this topic and like kind of told me how it looks like and how it sounds like and so on. But we never really dealt in detail in school. So, that's why we need to use it in our free time just to educate ourselves on that. Just a kind of quick overview for you guys. I mean, I think the Balkan Peninsula is really interesting because there's like just this one big southeastern Slavic tribe, or like South Slavic tribe. And the kind of first language that they used was called Old Church Slavonic. So, and the church in it kind of dictates that it was mostly used by the clergy, right? And it was something that not all like people knew how to write and so on. It's called in Serbian Staroslovenski. And
Staro is old, right?
Yes. And Slavinsky is like Slavonic, basically. And a lot of these names are going to have they're going to be very long names, just so you know. But if you check out our episode, I think it was on Easter or something like that, we already kind of mentioned Christus Voskrese and stuff like that. So these are like different variations of like these older kind of languages that we used, right? So yeah, basically this was used everywhere, right? Not only in Serbia. And then after that, there is a new variant called Srpsko-Slavenski. which is like Serbian Slavonic, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And that one was more kind of like used by the, like, how do you say it? By the masses, you know? So
By public, yeah.
yes. And then the Ottoman Empire came in and took over. And during that time in the north of Serbia, that was like the territory of Austro-Hungary. And during that time, like we were trying to kind of, not be influenced by the Ottomans or the Austro-Hungary. So we asked for help from the Russians. And this is where how is it called? Rusko-Slovensky, I think. Yeah, Rusko-Slovensky came in. And that's why we have a lot of also Russian, some words and like some ways of saying. So I think, I don't remember which variant of Christos Vaskrese, Christos something. One of them is Rusko-Slovensky.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, as far as I remember, it was Vaskrese, but
Vaskrese. Yeah, probably. Just sounds funny. And then finally we have Slaveno-Srpski. This is called like, I see these are all kind of like variations that we had. They came after Rusko-Slovensky, which is a bit more like Serbian, right? Like a bit less Russian. And then later we have Srpsko-Hrvatski.
Yeah.
The
most modern one, I guess.
Yeah, and people don't like that name, but at a certain time, I mean, because it's like Serbian, Croatian, but like where the other languages in it, right? But at that time, because at that time we had so many different dialects, variations, and everything, so it was sometimes very difficult. It was still like Slavonic, right? Like, but it was so different in different areas. So this is where Vuk Stefanović Karadžić comes in.
Yes, this famous man.
Exactly, the famous, so now you know him. So basically there was a need to kind of like unify, choose one standard. And it's kind of like, how do you choose a standard? Which dialect is going to be a standard? Because they're all valid, right?
That was challenging. And I think he like partly chose the easy practical sides, but if I had a chance to speak with him, I would ask, why did he not change the rule of Padeshis?
Oh yeah.
In an easier way.
Yeah, but so yeah, it's interesting. I mean, he had obviously his reasons for why he chose a certain dialects or like certain variants, but yeah, he decided to choose this with Đuro Daničić, by the way. I don't know if you heard about him as well. He was also a Serbian philologist. He's very famous in Serbia, yeah. And what they did, they reformed the language, created the kind of that modern, Cyrillic alphabet, and then that was done in the 1850s. I wrote it down because I can't remember that well. It was the Vienna Literary Agreement between Serbs and Croats.
I see.
And the agreement was that the language that's going to be used as a standard is going to be based on the dialect of Shtokavian, Jekavica, and Eastern Herzegovian.
Eastern Herzegovian.
Yes.
Okay.
So today's Bosnia, actually, So yeah, so this was basically the premise of everything, how everything happened. But obviously, even though that was like the standardized language, there were so many other different dialects, and I don't talk in Jekavica, right? So that's something. And I think the biggest differences are, to me nowadays, I mean, I think to many like linguists as well, is it's not really the difference between the language. We don't really look at it like that. We look at the difference between dialects, which is we have like narečja and so on, right? We have ekavica I ikavica, which is the use of yod, right? J. And I speak ekavica. But ekavica and ikavica are used in Bosnia. They're also used in Croatia, just in like different areas, right? Actually, let me think. Yeah, ikavica can also be a bit used by some in Bosnia because it's close to Croatia, right? But also Jekavica is used somewhere in Serbia as well. Like it's so it's kind of this thing. Then we have the difference between Shtokavian. What is it?
For that, Shtokavian, I guess, comes from the question what, right? Because
Exactly.
I was reading this book by Lila Hammond, An Essential Grammar for
Hmm.
Serbian learners. And she was telling like what question actually is the turning point to describe these accents, should we call them? So chka, shta, što
Mm-hmm.
derive
Exactly.
the origins.
And that's so this is exactly what Vuk Stefanovic Karadžić did, right? So he took Štokavian, which is što or šta, and then you have Čakavian, which is cha or cha, and Kajkavian kai. And I think Kajkavian to me is always somehow connected to Zagreb. It's like a very typical Zagreb, the Zagrabian dialect. I don't know how you say Zagreb, dialect from
As
Zagreb.
I haven't been to Croatia yet, I cannot picture, but I found a TV series on Netflix
Yeah.
with that dialect. So I just started to watch it, and I'm
What's the
trying to
series?
see. I can't remember the name because it's in Serbian,
So
but I will tell.
yeah, I never watched so there were some Croatian series in Serbia at a certain point, and I just found their accents so cute. I don't know, for me it was like I don't know how to explain it, and I loved it. And I remember when I have a friend from Croatia, and we met like, I don't know, like 3-4 years ago, and she would tell me how she loves my accent, and I would tell her how I love her accent, you know. So it's this mutual like love. Like, I want her accent. She's like, I want your accent. So yeah.
That's cute.
Yeah. Though these are basically like the biggest like differences. Did you have some questions for me, or before I move on to like kind of just giving examples?
Before we continue with the show, here's a quick reminder. This podcast is free for everyone and supported by listeners like you. We hope that this podcast is useful and convenient to you. This is a labor of love for both of us. To help us continue creating useful content for everyone, we will appreciate your help. If you have the means, you can support us in different ways. You may just go to buymeacoffee.com/Mozdekafa podcast and send us some cups of coffee. You may also become a member of our show on patreon.com/Mozdekafa podcast and get extra benefits like bonus content, full transcripts of the show in Serbian, or even join us on the show. We rely on your support to help everyone more in learning Serbian language and culture. Thanks for joining us today, and now let's get back to our episode. Yeah, for me, like as a learner, when there's this Bosnian word or Bosnian accent or Bosnian language, I cannot understand what exactly. But for you, I'm sure, right? It is easy what she's talking about, what he's talking about when they say something in Bosnian.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
understand everything what they say.
yeah, like usually you understand almost everything. Depends, you know, it all depends on the region, right? And if they use some specific wording or something like that. But I mean, the bottom line is that legally you can call all of these languages now because they have a status of languages, right? So that's not incorrect. But the point is that they're mutually intelligible. So that's, you know, and of course, probably I would be able to understand someone like who lives in Vukovar, like near Serbia, right? More than someone who's from, I don't know, Split, right?
Yeah, from the west side. Maybe.
Probably, but you know, I'm learning new words in Serbian every day, and I'm learning new words from like every other area of Balkan as well. So that's totally normal, I think. And I wanted to just mention that, like, I had when I would make videos like that, and I never would state like they are the different languages or the same languages, you know, but people would then just add very isolated comments like, if they're the same languages, why do we use this word here and then that word here and then this word and that? And I'm like, but in American and British English, there are also differences. I mean, you're like using very isolated words. And of course, I mean, I use maybe different words in the north of Serbia than some people in the south of Serbia. Like, this is just, I feel like, a very weak argument for these kind of like, oh, they're different languages, not to say that they are not, but just saying that there has to be a more
argument.
like basis, for these things, not just vocabulary. Yeah.
I understand you. I need to hear more. I need to see more to have an opinion. Let's give some examples then, right?
Okay, so I wrote down some very basic examples. I don't want to overwhelm anyone.
Okay.
And I added like some differences in Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, and Croatia. All right. This is going to be difficult again, because it's very difficult to say this is what you say in Croatia, because they use Ijekavica, Ikavica, maybe somewhere even Eka, like these things, and different areas, different words. So bear with me. This is just something that I've heard, but you can use anything or whatever. Okay. So let's just start from the basic one. Hello.
Yeah. Zdravo, right?
Zdravo. Yeah. Or you could say ciao, right? Pretty much the same thing you can use in Bosnia, Herzegovina, in Montenegro. Probably you're going to hear the same thing in Croatia. I mean, ciao is also very universal, right? And maybe more towards the east, you're going to hear zdravo. But then the one thing that I know is that they say is bok.
What? Bok.
You haven't heard of that?
No, I
bok.
hadn't.
Yeah, so this is very typical. So you say Croatian, I always think of that. But of course, does not necessarily mean that it's used everywhere in Croatia, but bok is like very typical. I always think for some reason that it's maybe like Bog, like God. But then they just assimilate it into bok. Kind of because it's more easier to pronounce, right? Bok than Bog. Wow. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but that's how it sounds to me. Okay. You learn something new.
Definitely. By the way, Zdravo is also in the North Macedonia, right?
There you go. Although Macedonian is a bit more like, I would struggle really with understanding. Yeah, I think even more than, but they would probably understand Serbians perfectly well. So
yeah, definitely they do.
Disadvantage for us.
And second most common example that I use a lot, ne razumem, izvinite, ne razumem.
Exactly. Ne razumem, right? How would you say it in Ijekavica?
There's going to be ne razumijem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting it.
Yeah, so you can use that in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, but in Croatia as well. But there's also a specific one in Croatia where you can say ne kužim.
Ne kužim.
Kužiti is razumeti.
Oh, they have different words.
Yes, exactly. Again, probably someone in Bosnia says ne kužim. So, okay. And then this one, my boyfriend always just teases me with this one. Good night. So in
Dobro večer.
Dobro večer. The same you can use the same in Bosnia, Herzegovina, Montenegro, and in Croatia. But in Croatia, they have also a slightly different way of saying it. It's dobra večer.
Dobra večer.
Yes.
Not dobro, but dobra. And not večer, but večer.
Yes. Which gender of the noun is it then? If
it
it's
is
dobra?
Then becoming a feminine, not večer.
Exactly.
Understood. Even though it doesn't end with a, it is feminine.
That is true. Yeah. Dobra večer. And my boyfriend learned some words of Serbian, but he would just always. I told him the difference between dobro večer and dobra večer, and he just loves dobra večer more. So he just says dobra večer all the time. Yeah. And then I added also, where are you? Like, this way of saying like hello. Yeah. And gde si, which you can also use in Serbia as desi, or in my area, disi. I have to add that because it's so cute. I don't know, disi.
It's becoming more polite when you say disi.
But disi. And in Bosnia and Montenegro, you can say, actually I wrote down two, maybe I'm incorrect, I think gdje si and Jesse. I heard both actually. Jesse and Jesse. Actually, I use Jesse. Jesse sometimes with like my Bosnian side of the family. So
Jesse.
Or Jesse. Yeah, I think you can hear it in Serbian as well. And I wrote down Croatia as well, Jesse. That's how you would say.
Okay.
And then I just added one vocabulary item, although there are a lot of them. I mean, we can go on and on, like talking about differences. Maybe that can be actually one of the episodes where you can, okay, let's see which words they use in Croatia and in Serbia, like in terms of vocabulary, what's different. But also it's a bit difficult because they use in different areas, different words, you know. So for example, I'll give you this one. So for example, we say paradise in Serbian for tomato.
Yeah.
And then in Croatia, they say rajčica.
Rajčica. Completely different.
Yeah. Okay. But in the Istria area, I think they use pomodoro, Italian. Like basically. I think it's pomodoro if I'm not incorrect, the way how they say it. So yeah, it's like, sure, I can say rajčica, but for example, I was conducting an experiment for my PhD in Croatia, in Rijeka, which is in Istria. And I couldn't use rajčica. I mean, I could use rajčica, but they mostly use pomodoro over there, you know? So it's kind of like you have to be aware that they're different like areas.
I see.
Okay. And the last one I added, do you know how do you say bread in Serbian?
Of course, hleb.
Yeah, that's good. Hleb. Have you heard some other variant?
I mean, from the song, what was the song? One of my favorites, Lebac.
Lebac. That's true. I wrote that down as well.
Yeah, the multi-bread song.
So you can say hleb, you can say lebac, kind of omitting that H.
Yeah.
You can also say leb. Daj mi leba. You know.
Daj mi leba?
No, it's leb is singular and then genitive, I'm guessing. Wait, no, accusative.
Okay.
Koga šta, daj mi leba. Accusative, yeah.
Okay.
And then in Bosnia and Herzegovina, you can hear hljeb. Hljeb. Also in Montenegro, hljeb. But my grandparents come from Bosnia, but they all say kruh.
Kruh.
Yeah, kruh or kru, you know, which is also used in Croatia, for example. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that someone in Croatia says hljeb as well. Probably. Not just kruh. You see how complicated it is? Like, I can't say that there's one thing that you use in Croatia or in Bosnia because it's just too rich with dialects, too rich with like variations.
Definitely. But we can just focus on the ones that are used almost with the same root, but the endings are different. Like I remember from that book, mleko, mlijeko, and there was another one.
Mliko,
yes. So that was like the general example for me to understand how they say.
Lepo, liepo, lipo.
Huh? That's beautiful. The same.
Lipa. Lipa. How do they say? Not, it wouldn't be lipa cura, no? I don't know. Lipa. I don't know. Ti si lipa. What do I know?
Exactly. So you're beautiful, you're saying. In which one? In which
that would be ijekavica. Sorry, ikavica. Ikavica. Because it's lipa, ikavica, right?
Lipa, yeah.
Which is mostly on the coast of Croatia. But again, you can probably hear it somewhere else as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's all from my side. Do you have any questions?
Not actually one. How about Bulgaria? We didn't mention that. I mean, my friend who learned Croatian went to Bulgaria and she was having a normal conversation. I mean, as far as I don't understand well, I didn't know if she really understood them, but at least she was having a conversation.
Is she in Croatian and they in Bulgarian?
She knows Croatian. She's not native speaker, and she managed to tell everything what she wanted to say
Yeah.
in Bulgaria. I think she talked in Croatian or
Mhm.
Serbian, and then.
So I
How
never
about you?
went,
Have you ever tried that?
never been to Bulgaria or Macedonia for that matter, actually. And so I don't really know. They are linguistically a bit further away from like compared to Croatian with Serbian. So Serbian and Bulgarian a bit further away. But I will tell you that when I was in Austria, I had one friend. I mean, still have that friend. She's Bulgarian, and I would say I would speak to some of my friends, like Bosnian friends, in our language, and she would be like, I understand what you're saying, and then she would say it in Bulgarian, like the way how they say it. So yeah, I didn't hear her that much speaking in Bulgarian speaking Bulgarian because she never had anyone like with her who spoke Bulgarian, so I never overheard their conversation, right? But she said that she could pretty much understand a lot of what we were saying. She could hear the gossip.
Okay, that's cool.
So yeah, but
that's why everybody, I mean, if you learn Serbian, you can go all around the Balkans, I guess.
Instead of just arguing which is language and if they're the same language and if they're just this, just use the opportunity that you know one of these variants or one of these languages, and you can actually use it anywhere. So as soon as they see that you are a foreigner, right, they're going to accommodate to you, the way you're speaking, right? So, and I mean, we all know that, I don't know, like a bread is chleb and kruh, and like we're all pretty much aware. Maybe some newer generations not as much, but yeah, it's just use that knowledge, and you have the benefit to use that knowledge in other in the whole of Balkan, basically. And people can understand you, Bulgaria and Macedonia and Slovenia. Slovenian is another language that I wanted to say, right?
That's true.
Because it's also quite similar, but not as similar as Croatian is. Yeah.
All right.
There
Thanks
you go.
a lot, Ivana.
You're welcome. There you
Hvala
go.
ti puno.
Nema na čemu. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and I hope you enjoyed our video recording as well. Let us know.
Free to write
Subscribe.
comments and send your feedback and subscribe. I don't know where we are going to add the video effect, but
I don't know.
we'll work on it.
Exactly. Subscribe. Okay. Yeah. Bye from me. Prijatno.
Prijatno. Vidimo se.
Vidimo se.